Am I the a-hole for leaving my niece an inheritance but not my nephew? I was diagnosed with a terminal illness a few months ago. It's not a matter of if, but when, and the best estimate is that I have in the neighborhood of 1 to 2 years. I'm dealing with it. I've had a good life and no regrets. Part of dealing with it is getting my affairs in order before I leave the stage. My sister has 2 children, 13 female and 5 male. The 13-year-old is from her previous relationship, the 5-year-old from her current husband. My niece's father skipped out on them and my sister had a rough time of it, so I helped them out early on. Her husband is well off, so they're set now. But it's become very obvious to me over the years that he wishes my niece weren't in their lives. They don't exactly neglect her, but she's left out of a lot. And it's very obvious even to our parents that my nephew is heavily favored. I've talked to my sister about it at various points, but she's in denial, and I don't think would ever have the courage to stand up to her husband. I've tried to make it up to my niece in quiet ways, but I know it still hurts and I worry about her. I made some very fortunate business moves early on and I'm now sitting on a large chunk of change in a retirement fund that I will not live to use. My sister has made no plans for my niece's college or anything else, but the girl is incredibly smart and hardworking in school, and she deserves a chance to make the most of herself. It's my intention to have everything put in trust for her after my death, managed by my executor until she's 25 so that her parents can't touch it. She can have money for school, and some time to mature before being fully in control. My nephew already has a trust fund from his father, so he doesn't need the money. Ironically, this would put her in a better financial position than the rest of the family. But I think that's justice at this point considering how much she's put up with and missed out on. I sat down with my parents and sister to lay out my plans and end-of-life wishes, and my sister is deeply offended that I'm excluding her and my nephew. She thinks I should leave the money to her to split between them or set up equal trusts for the kids. My father loathes brother-in-law and said he agrees with me not letting him or my sister near the trust, but I could leave my nephew something to save face. My mother is too distraught to have an opinion right now. Brother-in-law made a joke later about contesting the will, and my sister isn't speaking to me. I feel like I have more responsibility to look after my niece since no one else is, while her brother will be okay. I love my nephew too and don't want him to feel bad when he's older. I've planned to leave him some non-monetary items. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole, but I would see a lawyer. I've heard too many times where people mentioned leaving the other person a nominal amount of $5,000 so that they can't contest the will. Granted, my expertise is coming from Better Call Saul and a few other shows, but I'd still check. The laws governing disinheriting someone vary. It could be you have to explicitly name them and state you are disinheriting them, or you have to give a token amount to demonstrate they weren't accidentally forgotten. Same thing with introducing a do not contest clause. OP needs to check with their lawyer and be careful with a will if they want the money to go to the niece as desired. OP actually needs to check with a lawyer at 100%, but in general, disinheriting somebody means like your spouse or child. Not an a-hole at all. But agree with your father. Maybe leaving a token something so your nephew isn't left feeling the way your niece does. That you didn't value him at all. But agree that the majority is left to your niece to ensure she gets the same leg up as your nephew. And make sure that you have it locked right that there can be no contest. And they should think long and hard about it if they want any sort of relationship with her daughter. But also leave a letter for your nephew explaining your rationale that he can read as an adult. It's your money and you leave how you see fit. I've planned to leave him some items from my grandfather as well as some of my collections which do have value, but I think he'd enjoy having the actual items more since he always wants to see them when he comes over. I would go ahead and create your niece's trust, with you as trustee and name a successor into creating documents, while you are alive, and move most of your assets to it, and then just leave a small estate in case brother-in-law's joke is not really a joke. Talk to a lawyer to confirm and create it soundly, but that will likely help assure your wishes are followed. Brother-in-law made a joke later about contesting the will. I would flip out if anyone did that to me. It's even worse if I had an estimated 1 to 2 years left. Now for the update. First, thank you for the kind condolences. It's never an easy thing to face, but there are worse things that can happen and I've already been more fortunate than most. As everyone has suggested, I do have a good lawyer and financial planner working on this, as well as a trusted friend in estate planning who will be my executor, so that this remains as far outside of family politics as possible. I do like the idea, as someone suggested, of leaving enough for university tuition locked down for my nephew, just in case his father is being dishonest about the trust, so I will discuss that with the professionals. I'm also leaving him some items of actual value, which I suppose he could sell if he chose. That being said, he has a large family on his father's side to help him, whereas my niece has only me and my parents locally. Our other family lives abroad and would not be in a position to help. I do also like the idea of making recordings and letters for them to explain the situation. Some here were worried about brother-in-law treating my niece badly the next few years because of the trust, and that's something I've been concerned about myself. My niece would prefer to live with her grandparents, and they would be happy to have her, but my sister has been an obstacle to that because of appearances. I've compiled evidence of emotional neglect over the years, along with brother-in-law's shady behavior in general, and have discussed suing for custody with my parents in the event the situation worsens. I will work in some emergency funds for legal costs and such in the event that happens, or to allow my niece to emancipate at 16 if she chooses. That year or two gap might be difficult for her, but I think if it's clear that there are a lot of eyes on the situation and people in her corner, brother-in-law won't escalate too much, as it would draw unwanted attention to his other activities. Before I was diagnosed, I had floated the idea with my sister of paying to send her to a good boarding school, so she could get a better quality education, and maybe feel a little more comfortable away from home. That was received favorably at a time, so that may also be an option if my sister is still open to it. My parents and I do plan to sit down with my niece soon and discuss this with her. Make sure she's introduced to my executor and lawyer so she knows who she can reach out to if she needs help or advice, and prepare her for what's coming. I had planned a trip for all of us, sister and nephew included, back to my parents' home country for Lunar New Year, so I'm hoping that I'm still healthy enough by then to go, and that some of this can be worked out while my sister is away from brother-in-law's influence. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my stepdaughter her Christmas present from her grandparents if my son doesn't receive one as well? I, 31 female, have been married to Dan, 39 male, for 7 years and have Nick together, 4 male. Dan has a daughter, Mel, 11 female, whose mother passed away during childbirth. We met when Mel was 1. Mel's grandparents, Tim and Kim, maternal, used to not be a part of our lives. They never supported my relationship with Dan. They told Mel I was trying to replace her, that I didn't love her, and other comments. Dan decided to go no contact as he didn't like how they treated us in front of Mel, and how Mel began replicating that behavior. Last Christmas, we all reconciled due to world events occurring. During this time, Tim and Kim only brought presents for Mel and Dan. Me and my parents were also present, and we both bought presents for them, but it wasn't reciprocated. Nick noticed that his sister and dad got a present, but he didn't. I didn't like the behavior and knew as he got older, it'll become more apparent, and I don't want him experiencing that. Me and Dan sat down with them to explain how we felt, but they just acted surprised. I suggested we lay down boundaries at how we'd like to approach any gift-giving holidays to be better prepared in the future. We agreed that for birthdays and Christmas, we'd give gifts to everyone, and it was the thought that counted. Throughout this year, Tim and Kim only bought gifts for Dan and Mel's birthday. My birthday was in March and Nick was born in April, but we didn't receive anything, not even a card. Sent a text asking if everything was alright, but they said they were busy and wished us a happy birthday. For Kim's birthday, my parents let them stay in their second home so they could go on vacation. They took my parents up on that offer, yet when my parents' birthdays came up, they didn't receive a gift or a text. At this stage, we were all pretty frustrated, and my parents felt like they were taken advantage of, as Tim and Kim were only nice to them until after their holiday. Last week, Tim and Kim came to drop off presents for the kids, as they had been exposed and wanted presents with us in case they couldn't come over. They dropped off 2 boxes, both labeled Mel. I texted assuming that they'd accidentally written Mel's name twice, and asked which was which, but they told me both were for Mel. I asked where Nick's present was, but they said they weren't giving him one. No explanation. I was fuming, so I told Dan the situation before responding. We told them that we would not be giving Mel the presents from them unless Nick got one, as it wasn't fair, and we'd already agreed to give everyone gifts. They claimed that wasn't fair and we were showing favoritism, and how can we withhold a gift from an innocent child? I then said that I'd rewrap it and claim it was from Santa. They posted on Facebook about how I was favoring my child and punishing their grandchild for no reason, and this was met with criticism directed towards me. You're the a-hole for this instance. Nick isn't related to them at all. These are Mel's maternal grandparents. Her mother died in childbirth and you are now trying to cut her off from the rest of her mother's family because you want them to pay the toll of buying presents for you, your son, and your parents. That's unreasonable when their only family in your household is Mel. The comments about replacement / etc. were not acceptable, but you did not mention those as having continued or being the issue right now. Your issue is them not buying your entire family presents. As long as they are now cordial with you, that's really all you can ask for. It's so weird how hard you guys keep trying to force these folks to care about a kid they're not related to. Your son has grandparents and parents, and doesn't need Tim and Kim. Mel has her dad and them. I don't know what kind of mom you are and would never assume you aren't a great one to her, but at the end of the day, her dad and them are her only biological family. Why would they want to buy a kid that isn't their family presents? Let them have their thing with Mel, and if it's with Mel only and you don't like that, don't contact them more than you have to. I don't mean to be rude, and I apologize if this upsets you. Just my take. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for moving my pregnant younger sister into my house without asking my boyfriend's opinion? Info. My 29 female boyfriend, 31 male, and I have been together for 5 years, but he does not live with me full-time. We have a semi-long distance relationship. We live about 300 miles away from each other. I own my house in my town and he owns his flat in the city he primarily lives in. We each pay our own bills, but chip in for food when we are at the other's place. We try and see each other for a long weekend every second weekend, alternating whose home we go to. My younger half-sister, 18 female who I'll call Lily, recently found out she was pregnant. She told her boyfriend, and his response was to break up with her and block her on all social media and her number. I'm not sure if it was him or someone in his family that reached out to our mom and told her Lily was pregnant. Mom has a very short fuse, especially when she has been drinking. Lily turned up on my doorstep at nearly 4 a.m. in her pajamas, crying her eyes out. Mom had apparently stormed into her room when she was sleeping. Mom was yelling, screaming, and very drunk. She smashed Lily's phone and iPad. Lily managed to grab her shoes and get out of the house, walking the 4 miles to my house. I live closer than our other siblings. At the time, I sent my boyfriend a text saying, "Stuff has gone down. Lily's at mine." When he woke up, I got a response saying, "Okay, talk later." In the morning, I rang my younger brother and we both went over to Mom's house. She was unconscious, breathing I checked, on the sofa. In 2 hours, we packed Lily's stuff into our cars and took it back to mine. All the siblings, 5 of us, talked and decided that for now, Lily will stay with me. She's still in school, so can't afford to live on her own. Our younger half-brother, 21 male, who is at university, will stay with our oldest brother when he comes back for the holidays rather than Mom's. That evening, after boyfriend had finished work, we talked about the situation. He knows how volatile my mom is, but he is not happy that I didn't talk to him before deciding to let Lily move in. He's now saying that he isn't coming to mine over Christmas. He was meant to come down today and stay over Christmas and New Year. His family lives near me, so he would see his family, not just me. He has decided that he's staying with his mother as he doesn't feel welcome at mine anymore. I've had a call from his mother asking what happened, and she said I was disrespectful to my boyfriend and she expected better of me. Am I the a-hole for not talking to my boyfriend before deciding to let my pregnant younger half-sister move in with me? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You do not live together. And I would have hoped you would be compassionate enough to understand your sister needs help, and that this will likely not be a permanent situation. Visiting family but not visiting you is childish behavior. I'd take these few days to really think about how his behavior makes you feel. Good for you for taking care of your sister and removing her and her child from a potentially dangerous situation. Thank you. Not the a-hole. It's your house and you two don't even really live together. If I got a text from someone saying I expect better, I'd probably go haywire. Until she said that, I didn't think I had done anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. Time to dump him and get a better boyfriend who would be supportive of you. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for making my relative pay for his uninvited guests' dinner? I recently graduated from college, and to celebrate this accomplishment, my family and I chipped in to have a buffet for my immediate family and some extended relatives and my godmother, also a distant relative, on a very nice restaurant. It's not exactly cheap, so everything is accounted for. and we informed them that those who are invited are the only ones who can eat. On the day of the celebration, to our surprise, my godmother brought in 3 co-workers of hers. They are total strangers to me. My dad said he would just pay for the surprise guests, but I put my foot down on it and pulled my godmother aside and told her she would have to pay for the guests she brought, because we only have the budget for the people we originally invited. She told me to consider it, and that this is a celebration. No need to be cheap about it. I firmly told her no, and that she would either have to leave or pay for them. She replied, okay, fine. After the 3 hours buffet, when it is time for billing, I specifically told the waiter to only count the original number of guests we reserved, and the 3 extras will be on a separate payment. My godmother was furious that we didn't relent and pay for her co-workers. She started ranting about it, but my dad told me and my mom to go home and he will deal with my godmother. After that incident, my phone was blown with text from my godmother who told me I embarrassed her in front of her co-workers. Turns out her co-workers ended up paying for themselves, even if my dad offered to pay for them. He guessed that the co-workers of hers didn't want to make the situation become more awkward, and it isn't a big deal for them. But my godmother was furious and told me that paying for her friend's dinner was nothing compared to the gifts she gave me since I was a little baby. Am I the a-hole for doing this? Not the a-hole. Who the heck brings strangers to a relative celebration? Your godmother was beyond tacky for thinking this was okay. Tacky times 10. I would never invite her to another gathering ever again. After working in hospitality and hosting events, this is my ultimate pet peeve. This woman invited 3 extra uninvited people and demanded that the host pay for them. In essence, she wanted the guest of honor to be out of pocket for 3 randos. She embarrassed herself, and I hope her co-workers told her off for putting everyone, them included, in a tacky tango. I don't argue. I speak my piece, then ghost. Her rants would have been insane because she would be blocked until she simmered down, apologizes, and proves she can manage to not act like an a-hole. Am I the a-hole for taking my friend to court after she kicked me out of the bridal party for cutting my hair? For my friend's 3-day wedding, I had to buy 3 different dresses, including alterations and specific shoes, which totaled over $700. She also wanted specific hairstyles for each day. Unfortunately, starting in March, my hair started to deteriorate. Due to health reasons, my hair was falling out in chunks, and in May, I made a difficult decision to cut my hair. I told the bride about my decision 2 weeks before the wedding, and she didn't say anything bad. The following week, she came over to my house, and when she was about to leave, she brought up that she was so concerned about my haircut. And I told her it would look good even though I wouldn't be uniform with the other bridesmaids. Then the following day, I received this message. After our recent conversations, I'd like to remind you of my boundaries. I've been very accommodating and graceful, but I can't allow you to disrespect me. As you know, my wedding has been something I've dreamt of for many years. Husband and I have invested a lot of money into the video and photos of this day, and as we reflect on this day in the future, we want to see our vision reflected in the memories. Since I asked each of you to be bridesmaid in 2019, I've been very clear and very communicative in my request. The timing of your decision to cut your hair and not inform me in advance is very upsetting to me. I would have felt respected if you had communicated with me more than a week prior to the wedding, so we could have worked together to find a collaborative solution. Your inconsistencies have concerned me, and while I sympathize with your health concerns, I'm not willing to compromise my vision to accommodate you or anyone else. If you have informed me in advance, we could have found a better solution. Since this is something you can no longer fully commit to, I need you to please step down from participating in my wedding. This was 3 days before the wedding. I immediately sent her and her husband an invoice asking them to reimburse for the dresses and shoes. Keep in mind that one of the dresses is still in her possession even though I paid for it. Neither of them replied, and so I decided to take it to the court. I was told I was inconsistent and selfish after I spent the past 2 weeks helping her plan a wedding shower. I worked with another bridesmaid to surprise her with a bridal shower after our bachelorette trip had to be cancelled. I spent hours helping her out with the wedding details. When she asked me to help her tone up before the wedding, I sent her a personalized workout program and even went with her to the gym to show her the ropes. When I agreed to be her bridesmaid, I was more than willing to oblige with what she asked, even if at times it was a lot of time and money. So, am I the a-hole for taking her to court because she kicked me out for cutting my hair? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Should have had a lawsuit served to her at the altar. Do you take your bridezilla to be your lawfully served wife? Not today, Hall. I mean, not today, Hall. She's a massive A and should pay you the money. But she won't because she's a massive entitled A. But I'm guessing you don't have any sort of written contract? Depending on verbal contract laws where you are, I suppose you can argue that expenses were incurred on the agreement that you were in the bridal party. On the other hand, if she's been as much of a control freak bridezilla as you say, she might be able to show evidence that a reasonable person would know that in this wedding, changing physical appearance would be seen as a breach of expectations by making themselves unsuitable for the bridal party. It's going to be a hell of a thing to argue successfully in court. There's no contract or verbal contract. I had obliged to every single thing she wanted. Dresses, shoes, makeup, jewelry. The last day of the wedding was a Monday, so I even took off work. The only thing was my hair. I physically could no longer do any of the hairstyles, and wigs are just too expensive. And because of how much I had already spent, I couldn't afford one. I would seek some form of legal advice. You'd have had what a lot of places would have considered a verbal contract, that you agreed to be a bridesmaid and participate in the wedding with the understanding you'd have to buy X things in order to do it. But there won't be anything about reimbursement, I imagine. As for the evidence, at a guess, you might have more than you think if you have emails/messages being all, to be a bridesmaid you need to buy X and Dex and Dex, etc. On the other hand, if she detailed hairstyles you now can't achieve, offered a wig solution or specified not to cut/dye hair, it might be seen as a breach. Like I said, get legal advice. Luckily, I had friends who are in the legal system, and they've helped me out and helped me prepare my case. I don't have a court date yet, and probably won't for a while because of COVID, but I'm prepared for it all, and have all my evidence gathered from emails, text, invoices, witnesses, etc. Not today, Hall. Not one bit. I can't allow you to disrespect me. And then she turns around and utterly disrespects you and your friendship. What a horrible, heartless friend she is. You've done your absolute best to be involved with her wedding/bridal shower, and helping her so much in addition to paying hundreds for your dresses, etc. And she kicks you out because of your hair? For which you have an extremely valid reason for cutting. And even if you didn't, it'd still be absolutely ridiculous for her to do and say all this. I'm baffled. I can only imagine how you're feeling. All the best to you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for enforcing a country club's dress code and not changing my venue? I'm getting married in February at a country club my fiancé's parents belong to. The club has a strict dress code in their dining area, even for events. Jacket, ties, and slacks/khakis for men. Dresses or slacks/khakis and a blouse for women. Kids are dresses, slacks and nice shirts. No logos. I put this on to save the date in case it would be an issue. Keep in mind, it's not a rule I created. Now, my younger sister is in college, and her standard outfit is basketball shorts and a t-shirt. I told her she didn't have to wear a dress, but slacks or khakis and a nice top. She told me no. I said it was strictly enforced, but she said she didn't care. I told her that it would mean a great deal to me and I could help her find something comfy. She still refused. So I asked why this was so important, and she said she thinks dress codes are stupid and she's not conforming. In the end, after constant back and forth, she said she's not coming. I said that really upset me as we're very close and I wanted her there. My mom says I should just change the venue, but I told her we can't with how close the wedding is. My in-laws paid for it and they'd lose their deposit. She told me then I should ask for an exception to be made, but the club said no. My mom says I'm forgetting my roots to impress my fancy in-laws. Am I the a-hole? Change the entire venue. For one person? Your sister isn't a nonconformist. She wants others to conform to her. Not the a-hole. You were very open with her and gave her plenty of options. Also, khakis and a nice shirt isn't that strict of a dress code. My parents and other siblings also hate the dress code, but were willing to go along. Now that sister is refusing, they feel less alone. Do they hate the dress code, or are they envious that you're marrying a wealthier family? I don't know if that's that. They're all just very laid back. No cares for the future or what comes. They don't care if people hate them. When they met my future in-laws, we went to this nice place with no dress code, but it's implied you dress up. My family showed up in jeans, shorts, My dad wore a t-shirt advertising a beer company. Not a-hole. Forget any written code. Basketball shorts and a t-shirt are not appropriate to wear for a wedding guest. They aren't appropriate for most jobs at all. Not sure what her future is going to be if she must wear basketball shorts all the time. Even in entry-level fast food, retail, or construction jobs all require pants. Not a-hole. Your sister needs to learn that certain events require certain rules to be followed. She's an adult, isn't she? She's 22. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to take off my engagement ring for my sister? I, female 26, recently lost my fiancé, male 28, in a car accident. My sister's, female 23, boyfriend, male 25, who happened to be my fiancé's brother, was also lost in that accident. It was very sudden and overwhelming for both me and my sister, and we are still both struggling after weeks of grieving. I'm still having trouble processing that I will never be able to marry him, and I have been wearing the engagement ring every day since he passed. It has been a very difficult few weeks for my sister and I, and we have been trying to cope together since. But yesterday, we had a fight about my ring. She asked me if I was ever going to take the ring off, and told me that I was being selfish for wearing that ring. She insisted that she was never able to get engaged or get married to her boyfriend, and that my fiancé was dead, so I wouldn't be getting married to him anytime soon, so I shouldn't wear it. I don't know if it was the grief talking, but either way, I got angry real fast and flipped out on her. Yes, wearing the ring won't bring him back, but it was the last thing he gave me before he died. I'm not sorry for wanting to treasure that ring, even if there will never be a wedding ring to accompany it. I argued this, but it only made her angrier, and our argument escalated. She left my apartment after that in a rage. We are both suffering from our grief, and I have no right to claim I have it worse. But I believe I was justified in yelling at her for what she said, and that she shouldn't have been so hurtful to me like that. My family, however, doesn't agree, and I have received several texts telling me that I was out of line for what I said. Am I the a-hole Reddit? Keep your ring. Wear it with pride and be proud of the love it will forever hold. You and your sister have suffered a terrible, terrible loss. And while she's grieving, I don't think she means to be so cruel. At least I hope not. Maybe she just was never given something sentimental from her boyfriend, so she's just upset she has nothing to hold or wear daily like you do. May I suggest a locket for both of you? Maybe matching set each with pictures of your late loves inside? Again, I am so sorry for your loss. Grieve how you wish. You will grieve differently. But you do not have to change how you give for someone else's comfort. Not a-hole. 100% this. Hope she, like you, is in the middle of the grieving process. I don't think she meant to be cruel. And I don't believe you did either. You are reacting to her. You both need time, understanding, and maybe therapy. Cherish your ring and the love it holds. No a-holes here. Not a-hole. You grieve how you need to. You got something she didn't, but you both missed out on so much. Let her know you are sorry she feels that way, but you need to grieve how you need to grieve. And for both, I would seek out professional grief counseling. Their relationship reminds me of my aunts and uncles' relationships. Two sisters married to brothers. They both were beautiful couples that stayed together for decades until death came. To think that beauty was cut so short and suddenly so tragic. I hope they find peace and new love in their lives. I am so sorry for your losses. Grief affects everyone differently, and although it was out of line for her to ask you to stop wearing the ring, it sounds like it is the grief talking, assuming that this is not normal behavior for her. It was within your right to push back, and understandable that you would want to wear something so dear to you and your fiancé's memory. No a-holes here. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for spending a large amount of money in a trip with my dad instead of paying the debt on my boyfriend's house? I, 29 female, recently got in a fight with my boyfriend, 30 male, and his family because I refused to spend my savings in house payment that could result in him getting kicked out of the house. So context. I've dealt with mental health problems all my life, but when I turned 20, I was at my worst. Due to that, I couldn't maintain a stable job while studying in college. My parents have always been supportive of me. They let me live with them, and my dad paid for my psychologist, medicine, all my college education, and maintained me until I was 24, while also taking care of my mom and my 3 younger siblings. He's a super hard-working man, and I think he enjoys and loves to give me and my siblings the best he can. Top-tier parenting, and I love him to death. Fast forward to this year. I have a stable job that pays really well, and I've been saving money for the past 5 years because I wanted to do something for my dad as a thank you for all the sacrifices he has done for me. His dream has always been to go to Disney World. We are not from the USA, and stay in one of those fancy hotels, but he was never able to do it. And now that he is retired, he thought he would never be able to. So I have been saving money in secret to make it happen, and the only one that knew about my savings was my mom, and she loved the idea. I've been with my boyfriend for 1.5 years now. He has a good job, but he is not the best at taking care of his finances. He bought his house before we meet, and he is still paying for it. But due to his poor management of money, he starts accumulating debt due to house payments. But a few weeks ago, he told me that there is a chance of him losing his house if he doesn't pay the debt. Last week, I finally reached my goal and had enough money to take my dad to his dream trip. Just the two of us. I told my boyfriend that I was really excited, but he was livid. It asked me how could I be so selfish and go on a stupid vacation trip when he is about to get kicked out of his house. He also told me that if we were in for the long run, I should help him to get out of his debt because that could eventually be my house too. We don't live together. I live in a small apartment. He also told me that his trust was betrayed because I've been hiding the savings from him, and that a good partner does not do that. I told him that it was not my responsibility to pay for his debt, but he kept yelling at me, so I left. He told his mom and sister about it, and now both of them have been harassing me, going to my apartment and to my work telling me how horrible I am for not helping him and trying to convince me to pay his debt. I get that my boyfriend is going through a hard time, but this is something I've been working really hard to achieve. And since my dad is starting to have difficulties walking, with his eyesight and his health in general is getting worse, I don't want to wait any longer to take him on this trip. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. But you are breaking up with him, right? You can't continue to be with someone that's so controlling and abusive. He sends his family to your house to harass you into giving him your hard-earned money when he can't even manage his own finances. Could you just imagine what he would be like if you lived with him? If the example you have of a good and decent man is your father, why would you choose to be with the opposite of that? Don't accept less than what you have been raised to expect. If you will, for example, one guy ended his girlfriend and her kids because she wouldn't give him half her $600 stimulus check. So not today, Hall, and get out of there. I feel like this is something that he and the family will always hold over your head if they can stay that level-headed. Give your dad his gift and say goodbye to deadbeat boy toy. Horrifying. Opie is a good person and deserves better. And it was smart not to tell her terrible with money boyfriend about her savings. It's not his money and none of his business. Not today, home. The minute I read that you don't live together and he is only your boyfriend, he has no say in your finances. His house, his problem. He made his own mess. I hope your trip to Disney World is super fun for your father and you. Also, his mom and sister are over the line. Like restraining order worth. If they are so concerned, they can bail him out themselves. Actually, just dump the guy because this is just one big red flag about controlling your money. The idea that is asking her to put money to his house is bad enough, but to demand Opie's hard-earned money with no offer to give her an equity stake in said house? Absolutely freaking unbelievable. Where do people find this kind of entitlement? Your boyfriend is showing his true colors. He expects you to forgo your plans for his lack of planning. His debts and lack of budgeting is on him, not you. Dump him. Take the trip with your dad and enjoy. Just as importantly, so is his family. Opie can expect to be harassed anytime he wants something she's unwilling to give. Am I the a-hole? Dad's girlfriend gets nothing. My 36 female dad was always mean, bad-tempered, abusive, bullied anyone who would stand for it, which unfortunately included Mom, who was completely cowed by the time my brother and I were old enough to get out of Dodge. Our homes were always open to her, but to him, not so much. Then last year, he outdid himself. After a heart attack Mom devotedly nursed him through, he decided he had never really lived. Threw Mom out of the house they owned in joint names. She came to me and we were glad to have her, and moved in a girl known in the family as Dad's bimbo. Never held a job, no qualifications whatsoever, which is quite difficult to do in the school all the local families went to, including ours, at exactly 1/3 his age. I refused to believe she was attracted to him, the stereotypical bad-tempered, overweight, red-faced gammon. Well, sucks to be the bimbo. He had another heart attack last month and died intestate. Under English intestate rules, the house is mom's automatically, and the relatively small size of the rest of the estate means she gets all of that too. The bimbo, of course, gets nothing. So we went in, emptied the house of portable valuables, replaced Dad's big screen with a small portable, and served her 28 days notice to leave. She's blowing up about her rights all over social media in the small rural town we live in. We don't care. She says she gave up the council flat to move in with him and can't get it back. We don't care. She gambled and lost. Now she says she's pregnant. We don't believe her. It hasn't stopped her smoking and drinking. My husband thinks we ought to find out if she is carrying our half-sibling. We don't care. Even if she is, the kid is entitled to exactly 1/3 of what me and my brother are sharing, which is nothing. So are we the a-hole for ignoring this woman's alleged child? This is England, so she won't end up on the streets, but she won't get my mom's house and garden either. Now for the top comments. Not a a-hole. I like your style. In fact, I go one further and tell her that if she is pregnant and she won't stop smoking and drinking, then you'll have no option but to report her to your local social services department, who will investigate if they need to get a child protection order when the baby is born. That should get the truth out of her. I should point out that I don't think she is pregnant either, nor is that something social services may be willing to do. But she won't know that. Honestly, doubt she's even having a child as well. She's probably just saying that to draw you guys in. It's a bit invasive, but if she wants to make a stink, get a court order to have her tested for pregnancy, and if she is, then report her for drinking while pregnant. Not an a-hole. Call her bluff. Take a pregnancy test to her. Do not believe her saying that she went to a doctor. Tell her you need to see said proof of pregnancy right now. If she is, let her know a DNA test is needed for proof that said child belongs to your dad. She still needs to vacate the property with a proper eviction notice. I would address her social media rants with, "Oh, you have rights as a mistress to a known married man? Please show us where." Always call people out on their bluffs. Everyone sucks here. You clearly have some issues with an absolute stunning and skin-crawling level of misogyny and hatred towards women. The level of hatred for and objectification of your late father's girlfriend in this post makes me seriously fear for women around you. You sound like the next incel mass murderer. Get help. It seems to me you have reading comprehension problems. The OP is a woman, and the dislike is towards one person, not women in general. Next story is titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my stepson that my love is conditional?" My late husband Derek, 56, and I, 52, have 2 children, 14 and 16 together, and one stepchild, Damon, 28, Derek's son from a previous marriage. Damon has never gotten along with me, and I've come to terms with this long ago. I tried bonding, I tried backing off, I did everything but divorce his father. When his father was alive and he lived with us, Damon would tell me he hated me, tell his therapist he wished I was dead, begged his father to divorce me, and told his siblings he couldn't wait to move away to Israel and never see them again. He was 16 to 23 when this happened. I had grown to strongly dislike Damon, and would do my best not to involve myself with much of anything to do with him. When he left, I thought he'd mature and grow to change and accept us, or at least be cordial, but he cut all contact with me and only communicated with his father. Derek passed last August, and it's been rough on me and the kids. The home is taken care of, and it was Derek's wish to hand it down to Damon. Damon wanted us to leave right away, and I asked for a month to find a home, and he obliged. During this time, I tried to offer sympathy for his father's loss, but he wouldn't have any of it, so I gave up the dance, as the song was clearly long over. I moved into a 3-bedroom for my kids and myself and left a home to Damon, with all of his deceased mother's items, his father's possessions besides my wedding ring, and some pictures. I thought this would be the last I heard of him, until recently. He called asking to meet, and I humored him. He said that he wanted to try again and be a family. I asked if he meant he'd like to see his siblings. Nope. He said he wanted to have a mother and son relationship with me, as he knew I loved him no matter what, and that his father would want us to reconcile. He didn't even offer an apology, and suggested we simply forgive and forget. I told him that the time for reconciliation was long gone, and and if he wished to see his siblings, he could if that's what they wanted. But my love was conditional, and I have none for him. He was quite upset after, and he sent me multiple messages through other family members calling me a spiteful witch. Derek's side of the family believes I'm depriving him of a second chance over what he said when he was angry, and they said a mother is supposed to love her kids no matter what. Am I the a-hole for telling him my love is conditional? I was ready to call you an a-hole assuming this was a child, but this is a grown man who kicked you out of your home. Not an a-hole. And honestly, side-eyeing the kind of man who wouldn't leave his estate to his wife before his kids. Not an a-hole. He wants something. Tread very lightly. Yep, that's what I read too. Opie, watch your back. Not an a-hole. And the cynical side of me wonders what his real motives were to suggest a relationship with you. Such a complete U-turn after years of detesting you feels a bit off to me. I am assuming he is in a relationship to someone who has close relationship with her sibling/step-parent, and he is trying to position himself as being that type of person as well. Imagine being 28, kicking your siblings out of their home, and then assuming the love of a step-parent you treated like trash would be unconditional. Not today, Opie. Maybe, maybe not. Assuming that you came into his life when he was 16 and then had 2 children soon after. Not sure when his mother died, but he probably felt as if him and his mom were replacing him. As a parent, it was your duty to make sure to develop a relationship and to never give up on trying. As an adult, you had a power in this situation. The post does not paint a picture of how you treated him. Your account can never give us a whole picture. Your husband was the a-hole for leaving your family home to only one child, and Derek was an A for having you move out. But he did reach out and you shut him down directly. He's still your kid. I guess you're the a-hole is my final conclusion. How could Damon be Opie's kid if he never considered Opie to be his mom in the first place? Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to make an exception for my brother's son to attend my child-free wedding, just because he's a rainbow baby? Hi. I, female 33, am getting married come October to my fiancé Derek. Wedding planning went okay, but as soon as we started sending out invitations, the problems began coming our way. Thing is, Derek and I decided the wedding would be child-free. It wasn't out of the blue, and this possibility was there. I have a 42-year-old brother, Paul, who's married, but he and his wife suffered from several miscarriages and failed pregnancies during their marriage. They finally were blessed with a son that everyone calls a miracle and a rainbow baby. My nephew is 4 years old, and everyone salutes him and treats him as a king. It also turned blind eye to any of his behaviors he has, which caused him to become loud, destructive, out of control, and punchless. When Paul received invitation and found out kids weren't included, he and Mom lost it and decided on an urgent meeting with me and Derek. Paul said, "My son is an exception, right?" I said no, and this rule is to be followed by everyone. He argued that I was making a mistake by excluding my nephew. He and Mom went on about how he's a miracle since he's their rainbow baby/grandbaby. Then Paul said he had no problem with my wedding being child-free, but expects me to make an exception for his son. He explicitly said, "You can have your child-free wedding, but you're gonna have to make an exception for my son, and you know why." Derek apologized and said we won't, since our friends that by in-laws had kids too but now have to leave them home and arrange for babysitters, and advised him to do the same. Paul was offended, and said if his son isn't invited then he won't come, and gave us an ultimatum to drop out if we don't edit his invitation. That caused my family to freak out because Paul is the only and oldest sibling I have, and they said his presence at the wedding is a must. I had an argument with Mom and Dad, who said the fact I'm choosing this to be my hill to die on and treating Paul and my nephew like that was appalling. They emphasized how my nephew is special, and I should be ashamed to exclude him even if the wedding is child-free. My parents said that if Paul won't come, they won't come either, which devastated me a lot and caused me to break down. Derek said they were the ones being unreasonable and disrespectful of our wedding, and we should wait, maybe they'll come around eventually. But they've doubled down. This morning my aunt and uncle dropped out, as well as my other uncle last week. Paul told everyone, and they're supporting him and won't come unless I make an exception for my nephew. But that will upset my guests, and they'll call me hypocrite. My family's divided, saying I'm ruining my own wedding, basically saying this is all on me. Edited to add because I see this question asked a lot. My family have normalized this behavior from Paul and also his wife. Whenever I point out how unacceptable it is to expect everyone to cater to my nephew and his parents, Paul would chime in with, "She's jealous," because he and his wife have a kid while I can't/don't. I was married before meeting Derek, I divorced my ex-husband for my inability to have kids, but that's another story. Not today, home. You are not the one dying on this hill. Your brother is, and he's involving the rest of the family. If your family cares more about whether a 4-year-old gets to go to a wedding and / a reception, which as the only child there won't be any fun for him, than they do about celebrating you and your new husband, then that will make the decision about which family to spend holidays with that much easier. You're not being malicious. You are making a decision about your guest list. Your wedding is about you and your fiancé. It is not about your nephew, or your brother and his wife. The fact that they are making it about them is absolutely shameful. Thank you for your input. Fact is, there were easy options / routes for Paul to take, like getting a babysitter like Derek suggested, but Paul got extremely offended and agitated talking about how his son isn't the same as other kids, and how he never required a babysitter before. Derek kept rolling his eyes, but not out of disrespect for my nephew, but because of the way Paul spoke. Paul called Derek disrespectful, and he then gave us an ultimatum. It's a shame, and I definitely didn't expect this reaction from them. His son isn't the same as other kids. Paul is right in this. His son is going to be the biggest spoiled a-hole ever if your family keeps up this treatment and attitude. I'm sorry for their prior losses, but rainbow babies are not exactly unique. That's why there is a somewhat common term used to describe the situation. This one is their rainbow baby, but he's still a kid. And you've said your wedding will have no kids. Frankly, as someone else commented, this will make holidays much easier as you'll always know which family to spend them with. That is, Derek's side. Just invite your family. Celebrate your wedding the way you and Derek want and enjoy your life without them. When you choose to have a child-free wedding, you have to accept that some guests will not be able to come or won't want to come. You are in essence saying that you are willing to exclude some guests in order to have the child-free wedding you want. Not today, home. Your family are the main a-holes here, but you had to have known this could be the result with these people. You set the rules here, and they're following them. You can't be surprised or mad about it now. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend her kids not having a dad isn't my problem? I've been friends with Stacy since we were in elementary school. When Stacy was in her early 20s, she was a wild party girl and ended up getting pregnant twice. Before anybody asks, it was consensual. She just liked going to parties. I helped her look for the father of both kids, but many paternity tests later, she still doesn't know. I'm the godmother of both of her kids, and I love them to bits. My son's birthday is next week, which is allowed where we live, and Stacy asked me if my friends don't bring their husbands. I was very confused and asked why. And Stacy told me her eldest daughter has been going through grief that she doesn't have a father in her life. Stacy didn't want her daughter to see the kids being happy with their dads. I felt terrible, but I told her I'm not going to do that, since my husband and I are friends with them. She then had the audacity to call me selfish, and I told her, I'm sorry, but my godkid's not having a dad isn't anybody else's problem but yours. Am I the a-hole? Maybe you could have worded it a little better at the end, but you were definitely not the a-hole. I always felt like I enabled Stacy because I was always excusing her behavior. I know it sounded harsh, but I felt like she needed a reality check. No kidding. I mean, she had not one but 2 pregnancies, where she has not even a clue who the dad is? That's insane. Not today, home. That's honestly quite entitled of Stacy. She can't expect the rest of the world to pretend to be fatherless just because her kids are. I have no issue with partying and casual hookups, but honestly, this is extremely irresponsible on her end. Obviously, I don't know the details of her encounters, and birth control can fail, rubbers can break. But you'd think after the first oopsie pregnancy, she would be a little more careful. Stacy thought you couldn't get pregnant if you weren't ovulating, or if you do it upside down. She's an amazing mother other than that. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not rescheduling my party because it's on my dad's wedding anniversary? Okay, so when I was a kid, my dad got married to my stepmom 2 days after my birthday, which in itself wouldn't be a big deal. But it was a destination wedding, so I had to spend my 13th birthday packing and traveling. Which, whatever. It's only one birthday. Then when I was still a teenager, my dad's side of the family would just celebrate my birthday the weekend before, because of his anniversary. Again, no big deal. Then I'd celebrate with my mom on my birthday. My 25th is coming up, and I decided to have a cookout at my house to celebrate and to show them my new place since I moved. I invited some friends, my mom and stepdad and grandparents. I invited my dad and stepmom to be nice, even though I didn't really expect them to come. Well, he called me yesterday and asked me to have it the weekend after instead because he'd be out of town. I said no. Then he pressed more and asked, why not? What's the big deal if you celebrate on the actual or not? It's not like you're a kid. You should grow up and be flexible. I said no. I want to celebrate on my actual birthday. You chose your wedding date. I didn't choose my birthday. I guess he called me grandma, and she agreed with me that I didn't choose to be born then, but said it's his anniversary, so I should just be nice and have it a different day because he wants to come but can't. Am I the a-hole if I keep it planned for the same day? I just feel like my dad made his bed, and now he can sleep in it. Not the a-hole. You didn't choose to be born on a specific day. Your dad decided to get married on a specific day. Our daughter was born on our anniversary, and you know what we did? We celebrated the weekend after. Her birthday came first to us. When we got married, we chose the weekend after also, as we didn't want her to have to share her birthday with our anniversary. We got to choose the date for our wedding, and it was only right that we kept the celebration separate. Dad's an a-hole for picking himself, and not making any compromises at all, and expecting everyone else to change things around. Celebrate without him. You'd probably have a better day anyway. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my stepdad financially after my mom passed, even though I'm well off? This is hard to write, but here goes. I, 34 female, lost my mom about a year ago. She had cancer, and watching her go through that was one of the hardest things I've ever dealt with. I loved her more than anything, and I still can't wrap my head around the fact she's gone. The grief has been unreal. Growing up, it was just me and her, until I was 13 when she married my stepdad, Frank. From the start, Frank made it clear he didn't want anything to do with me. He wasn't outright abusive, but the man made my life hell in other ways. He treated me like I was an unwanted guest in my own home. He didn't want to hear me, see me, or be bothered by me in any way. He never spoke to me unless it was to give me orders. Once I hit 14, he pretty much turned me into the household maid. I had to clean everything, do all the cooking, take care of the yard, run errands, you name it. He'd sit in his chair, watch TV, and treat me like his own personal servant. If I didn't do things fast enough for to his liking, he'd criticize me. Say things like, "You're so useless. No wonder your dad left." Yeah, real nice, right? My mom always defended him, saying he worked hard and just tired. I loved her, but I'll never understand why she let him treat me like that. I moved out the second I turned 18 and barely looked back. Over the years, I've had next to no relationship with Frank. I only ever saw him because of my mom. Fast forward to a year ago when my mom passed, and now Frank's in serious financial trouble. Apparently, he didn't plan for anything, and they were barely scraping by. Now he's blowing up my phone, saying that since I'm doing well, I work in marketing and have done pretty well for myself, I should help him out with bills. He keeps talking about how I'm family and my mom would want me to take care of him. Here's where I might be the a-hole. I flat out told him no. I don't feel like I owe him anything. He made my life a nightmare and is only talking to me now because he wants something. I was nothing but an inconvenience to him growing up, and now he suddenly expects me to be the dutiful daughter and bail him out? I don't think so. But now he's calling me selfish and saying I'm dishonoring my mom's memory by abandoning him like this. I feel like he's trying to manipulate me, but then again, maybe I'm being too cold-hearted. He was married to my mom for 20 years, and I know she loved him. She would probably want me to help him, but I just can't bring myself to do it. Every time I think about giving him money, I get this anger inside me thinking about how he treated me when I was a kid. So am I the a-hole for refusing to help out my stepdad financially, even though I can afford to? Or am I being justified in cutting him off after everything he put me through? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are not obligated to help someone who mistreated you, even if they were married to your mom. Agreed. Frank treated Opie terribly growing up, and now he's only reaching out because he's desperate. You were not obligated to help someone who actively made your life miserable. Thank you. I was a servant a long time ago. Those times are gone. Don't even entertain this guy in his whinging. He made it clear you're not family to him, so take him at his word and block his number. She would probably want me to help him, but I just can't bring myself to do it. If that were the case, your mother should have had him treat you much better. I'm very sorry for the loss of your mother, but no, you are not the a-hole here. Basically, he brought this on himself by his negative behavior, not the a-hole. This sounds like her mom made excuses for his awful behavior and didn't protect Opie. Not the a-hole. Block him and move on. I don't want to bash a deceased person, but her mom did not do well by her. I can't help but feel if she even did anything even minor for him, he'd show no damn appreciation toward her, and he probably would feel even more entitled. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my sister's kids to school after they've been bullying my son? A bit of background. My sister Sarah and her 2 kids, Jake 14 male and Mia 12 female, recently moved in with us after Sarah went through a rough divorce. She's been staying with us for about 6 months now, and we've tried to be as accommodating as possible. My wife Laura and I have 1 son, Ethan 13 male. At first, everything was fine, and the kids got along okay. Over the last few months, however, Jake and Mia have been making Ethan's life miserable. They've been teasing him constantly, calling him names and even going through his things when we're not around. It's been especially bad for Ethan because he's more introverted and quiet. He's come to us multiple times, upset about things they've said or done, and I've tried addressing it with Sarah. Her response has been pretty dismissive. It's just normal sibling stuff. They'll grow out of it. The tipping point came last week when Ethan told me that Jake had taken his school project, something he'd spent days working on, and ruined it by drawing all over it. Ethan was in tears. When I confronted Jake, he laughed it off like it was a joke. Sarah didn't seem to think it was a big deal and said Ethan was being too sensitive. Laura was furious but tried to stay calm. I finally had enough and told Sarah that if she couldn't keep her kids in check, I wasn't going to keep doing favors, like driving them to school every day. I've been taking all the kids to school since Sarah moved in because her car broke down and she hasn't been able to get it fixed. It's about a 20-minute detour for me, and I was happy to do it at first. But after all of this, I told her it was too much, and she needed to figure it out on her own. Now Sarah's upset, saying I'm punishing her and her kids over something small, and it's not fair for me to leave her stranded. She even went as far as to say I was being petty and holding a grudge against the kids. She thinks I'm overreacting, and should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. My wife is 100% on my side, and thinks Sarah's kids have been out of line for months. But now Sarah's giving me the cold shoulder and telling other family members that I'm being unreasonable. So am I the a-hole for refusing to drive them to school anymore? Overall, not the a-hole, but you only stated that you wouldn't drive them to school? Why the hell haven't you kicked them out? They are bullying your son. By ruining his school project, they're messing with his grades. What if that project is the difference between a pass and a fail? They are bullying him in his own home. Kick them out. And anyone who tells you you're being horrible and unfair, ask them when are they taking her in then. You're right. I think it is about time someone else takes them on as their burden. I've been doing this for long enough now, and she doesn't even seem as though she's trying hard to fix her situation. Why would she try? She's living, I assume, rent-free or at least reduced? You didn't say whether she's helping out financially at all. If she's not, why would she want to give up a free space to live with someone who is willing to ferry her kids around? Does she pay gas? I would have kicked her out too just to protect my son. This is crazy. Opie's son is being bullied at home and Opie needs to do something. I kind of want to go Opie is the a-hole, but not for refusing to drive the kids to school, but for not kicking out the abusive kids and the sister. I think you're the a-hole because you're imposing a penalty that doesn't do anything and doesn't mean anything. Refusing to drive her kids while they still live in the house is going to amp up hostilities. You need to tell Sarah that she has 1 week to get out. The end. You're right. I'm going to have to clear her out ASAP. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not changing the name chosen for my son because my sister who struggled to have a child wants it for hers? I'm 26 female, due in a couple of weeks with my first baby, a boy. And I already know when he'll be born, because I have a C-section scheduled for medical reasons, so this is set in stone. We chose to name him after my husband's dad who died when he was a baby. This was something very important to him and therefore was important to me. This was decided early in my pregnancy but didn't get announced until my baby shower some weeks ago. We only let people know then because some wanted to personalize their gifts to us or add additional gifts with the name. My oldest sister, 36 female, is due late December/early January. This is also her first child after 12 years of infertility and struggling to conceive. Our middle sister, 34 female, was the first to have kids and has 5 now. She's also done having kids. For my oldest sister, watching our middle sister have kids so easily really hurt her, and I know their relationship struggled because my middle sister joked that she would carry a baby for my oldest sister and her husband, and she didn't say it as a joke at first. It was really hurtful to her. So there's some family tension there. I was disgusted by what our middle sister did too. They were always closest since they were only 2 years apart. I was never very close to either because of the bigger age gap. My oldest sister and I grew closer with our pregnancies, and she had told me she had a boy named picked out, but not a girl one yet because they had changed their mind about the girl's name they'd chosen. She asked if she could tell me when they decided on a girl name. I said of course. They found out they were having a boy a few days before my shower, but she decided to wait to tell me the name until after because she didn't want to take the focus off me. But then my son's name was announced, and it was the same name as the one they had chosen. She asked me afterward if we could find another name. She said she really wants her son to have his own special name, and they've had this name chosen for 10 years. I told her this is my late father-in-law's name and means so much to my husband. She told me she really doesn't want the cousins sharing a name. I said it could be worse. She left in tears and she went quiet for a while. But after a couple of weeks, she asked me again to please consider another name. I let my husband know what was going on, and we worked out something to say together, and then I communicated that we would not change the name. When she pushed, I pointed out my son would be born first, so it wasn't me stealing the name. She made it very clear how hurt she is, and how she feels like both me and our middle sister failed to understand all she's been through and lack compassion for her. I feel awful. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Cousins can have the same name. I assume they'll have different middle names and different last names. You can use first name, middle name, or first name, last name to distinguish them if they're together and you need to call to one of them. But realistically, how often will that happen? Or Sally's Ethan and Janny's Ethan if relatives are discussing the cousins. It's not that hard. Yes, different middle names for sure. And different last names. You're not the a-hole. Don't spend another minute worrying about it. Use the name you and your husband love and carefully chose. Info. How is offering to be a surrogate mother hurtful? But not the a-hole. Nobody owns a name, and cousins with the same name just happens. She will have to deal with it. It was a joke. She said it so it sounded serious. Got our oldest sister looking hopeful and then admitted it was a joke and she wouldn't do it. Oh, that is horrible. Yes, she did not sound like she was joking either. Had us all believing her, to then really show how little empathy she had. She was laughing it off too, like it was nothing. Last story. Am I the a-hole for demanding that my niece, or her parents, pay me back for the hundreds of dollars of perfume she stole from me? Note, I'm not involving the police, suing anyone, etc. Please don't try to argue with me about this or convince me why I should. I have a perfume collection that I started when I was a teenager slinging burritos as my first job. I have over 400 bottles at this point. I take great pride in my collection and I use it. I'm also happy to give people decants, samples, of most of my bottles. Let them sample a spray or two, give some bottles as gifts, etc. What I have a huge freaking issue with is my 17-year-old niece coming into my home under the guise of walking my dog, decanting bottles on her own, and selling the samples to her little friends. She thinks that because I have so many bottles, I wouldn't notice some missing or getting massive dents in them. Well, little Miss Entrepreneur failed to realize that our private Instagram wasn't friends only or whatever,
and I saw each and every freaking story with each price and sample she had. I tallied everything up and got a pretty good estimate based on cost per ounce. Thankfully, she mostly picked the TikTok famous perfumes and didn't go for the most rare niche perfumes. She did snatch an entire 2.5-ounce bottle of a certain brand though, which runs $300+ at most retailers, as well as full bottles of perfumes you can get at Sephora. Petty or not, I printed out the entire list of what she'd taken, price estimate, and handed it off to my sister, her mom. I said that I expect to be paid back, in full. And of course, her freaking sneaky little butt is never allowed in my home again. My sister got super pissy with me, going on about how my niece is just a kid. Kids make mistakes, etc. I said yes, kids make mistakes, and this is a great way for my niece to learn from hers. Their argument is that now the money she was going to use for a car has to go towards paying me back. I don't care. She is lucky that I have no interest in involving the police, small claims, or any of that. But am I the a-hole? Because she is a teenager. She's just a kid who created a successful business enterprise selling stolen property. Not the a-hole. This is part of what bugs me. If she had come to me and asked me if she could sell a handful of her friends some samples, I might have entertained the idea. I know getting samples for niche perfumes is a hassle. But nope, she screwed herself out of that one. This is a great way to learn. You are so right. This is a character-building core memory if she has consequences, not the a-hole by any measure. Next person might not let her off so easily. She has to learn the lesson now so it sticks. She might get juvie, community service, and made to pay, and it won't permanently affect her future. She gets away with this and pulls a similar stunt with someone else in a year or so, and she might end up in jail and with a record. You should be cruel to be kind. Not the a-hole. I can see from the fact that her mom considers a 17-year-old just a kid, as if she were a 5-year-old who stole a cookie before dinner, has caused her to act very entitled. She made a series of decisions to steal from you and profit from it. And she's either just a kid when she's stealing pricey scents, or she's an almost adult saving up for a car. Can't have it both ways on your dime. You'll be teaching her a better lesson than her mom bothered to. This teen is lucky the lesson only involves having to pay back what she stole instead of having charges pressed. OP's being nicer about this than a lot of people would. 17 is way too old to excuse stealing. If she tries this in less than a year with the wrong person, she will end up with a criminal record for the rest of her adult life. Info: since you didn't remove the physical bottles from your property, is it not considered theft? Is that why you won't involve the court or the law? No. She did take several full bottles. But it's not about that. It's about the consequences for other members of my family who have done nothing wrong. Info: what consequences would there be for other family members, and why? Life-altering consequences. I'm not comfortable sharing more than that. The negative outweighs the positive here. That makes zero sense. She stole so she should face consequences. Or are you more concerned with the embarrassment? Or family being embarrassed?